Ginger baby girl crying in the night. Nurse called a liar named with spite. Parents felt ashamed, love gone astray. They refused her a name, desperate to throw her away. Liars all alone, lost in a cruel zone.
The capricious nature of the deities in Egyptian culture led me to think of them as merely beings with different powers from those I personally possessed. I have always felt that were I to meet any of them, I would discover very little difference between immortal divinity and the mortal men I was privileged to associate with throughout my life. How could any deity be more impressive than Zacharias, Zakarian, or Amador? Key. Inscription above Pirate's End.
Penelope was as beautiful as a princess. Lyre smiled at her sister, adding her own fawning adulation to that of the principal bridesmaids. It was expected of her. Her position as bridesmaid was a begrudging one, only offered when Dwayne wanted to include one additional groomsman. Lyre did not mind. It was as close to a fairy tale wedding as she would ever come. Once she was in position, she watched the wedding with a cool detachment. She held no illusions about her own chances of having a beautiful high society wedding. To her parents, she was just the unwanted second daughter. They planned 2 offspring, a boy and a girl, but when their second child, Lyre, was another girl, they felt forced to produce Stanley.
Liars all alone, lost in a cruel zone.
Once the photographs were taken, Lyre was amused to see a place setting had been arranged for Dwayne's last-minute groomsmen at the top table, but overlooked for her. Her parents would be grateful if she would melt into the background. Lyre slipped out of the reception hall onto the grounds of the old knight. She felt a shameful freedom in skipping the duties of being a bridesmaid. For a while, she walked amidst the grounds, breathing in the heady scents of aromatic herbs planted as borders to the flower beds. She discovered a shaded stone bench and sat down, grateful for the solitude. Closing her eyes, she leaned back and allowed her senses to drink in the exquisite sensory overload of herbs and spices.
Will your sister not need you?
An amused voice asked. She opened her eyes and saw it was the man whose arrival from Europe entailed a need for another bridesmaid. Supposedly, he only arrived late last night, making it impossible to attend the rehearsal or the dinner that followed. She glared a challenge at him.
I dare say your absence is going to cause far more consternation than mine. Didn't you notice the lack of a place setting for me at the upper table?
I did, rather.
He said, his voice rich with a foreign accent.
Though in truth, I thought the mistake was more in your favor than mine. I thought my late arrival meant they did not expect me, so did not lay a place.
She laughed.
You mean the calligraphic placard with your name on it wasn't clear?
He chuckled.
I admit that threw me. But of course I saw that. I considered it an error still. The calligrapher doing the placards could not be expected to understand these family nuances. You are, after all, the sister of the bride, no?
She raised an eyebrow.
I'm amazed you'd know such a detail. Penn is ashamed of me after all.
I'm sorry I did not make it to the rehearsal dinner. I am Maximilian Luc Dumaine.
He said, extending his hand to her.
Please call me Max. I understand you are called Lyre Langham.
She shook his hand, pulling her hand back quickly at the rush of sensation his touch provoked. He studied her face, his own growing serious.
I admit I was surprised when I realized you were my partner.
Why?
Dwayne originally asked me to be his best man, but I could not commit to it. When I told him I could, after all, attend his wedding, he told me this would give his bride the chance to have her unattractive sister as a bridesmaid. I expected you to look more disagreeable than you do, based on the way he spoke of you.
How flattering.
I cannot quite fathom what attributes your family consider flawed. You appear quite beautiful to me.
She felt her cheeks grow hot.
Shall I list all of my shortcomings?
I am excessively curious.
He said, laughing. She stood and began to walk among the herb-fringed pathways.
My biggest failing,
She said as he joined her.
is being a girl. Mother tells me that had they determined my gender properly when she was pregnant, I would have been terminated. Then they might have only had my sister and brother.
I should therefore be grateful to whomever made such an error.
He said. He did not look like he found the topic humorous anymore.
However,
She tried to lighten the mood.
My parents are fond of my sister, and had I been beautiful, I think they would have forgiven me for being a girl instead of a boy. Alas, my second biggest sin is to be born with this truly repulsive red hair. Father once gave me a scientific article that explained it is a genetic imperative built into the human genome to find redheads unattractive. Some people can overcome this natural dislike, and some folks just have no choice. They only have redheads to choose from. But it is natural to find it unattractive, especially when coupled with green eyes.
She waved vaguely towards her eyes, not bothering to mention her mother's frequent commentary that her eyes were also too large, her lashes freakishly long.
I continue to be intrigued.
He urged her to continue.
What other genetic aberrations do your family disparage?
Even if it was as black as my sister's, my hair is frizzy.
She pointed out.
And on top of that, I'm quite short and with thin bones and translucent skin. Mother tells me men don't wish to see a woman's blood vessels. She thinks it's obscene.
She was about to indicate how her wide hips and full breasts made her look obese, when they were interrupted by the irate voice of her father.
Liar! Why the fuck did you bring Maximilian out here? He's needed for the final wedding photos. Your mother and I have been looking for him for the last 20 minutes.
Before she could respond to her father, Max blithely said.
I heard the photographs were going to start, so I came in search of my lovely counterpart.
He smiled at her.
Unfortunately, I was so carried away by the opportunity to spend time with such an exquisitely beautiful woman that I lost track of my errand. I do hope your wife will forgive my tardiness.
Liar could have told him flattering her father regarding her looks would not work. In his mind, an assertion that she was beautiful equated to a personal attack on his integrity. She could see her father was preparing to explode. Unfortunately, Max noticed the gathering storm and tried to defuse the situation. That had never helped before either.
Perhaps my tastes are contrary to most individuals. But to my eyes, your daughter is beautiful.
His eyes met hers as he added softly,
Quite beautiful.
You insult me by calling my perceptions into question. You believe your paltry attempt to pretend you haven't insulted me is sufficient?
Liar winced at the stilted and pretentious words her father used. He looked at Liar with a stormy expression.
I've had it up to here.
He held his hand over his head.
Having people discount my eyesight and intelligence and calling you anything other than the monstrosity that you are. Your mother feels the same.
He looked at the man standing next to her and said with a curl of distaste on his lip,
You're entranced by her looks? Fine. You keep her then. I'm sick to death of having it be known my genetics are responsible for her.
He stormed a few dozen feet away from them before turning back to say,
I don't think we'll need either of you for the last of the wedding photos.